Boops Are Eternal, Chapter 8, High Expectations. Sweet, sweet freedom. You were overjoyed to be out of that fucking hospital and its growingly sociopathic doctors. Seriously, who thought of a medicine that hurt like that? Or, in other terms, you were literally just kissing the dirt outside. I mean, sure, you were getting some looks, but it was just so worth it, dude. No more overthinking, no more endless self-distraction, and no more burning. And generally, you could do anything other than sit around wallowing in pain. And confusion, too. Yeah, you were pretty loopy back there. That was a growing problem. You know, that's actually kind of a reminder that Twilight is a godsend, in all that figurative and punny way that you can imagine possible. You know, how to put it. But you knew that all those uncomfortable questions would become useful someday, particularly when it came to getting you the hell out of there.
Anon, are you done with that yet?
Kinda like that. 5 more minutes, 5 more minutes.
We don't have 5 more minutes. I think the word got to the guard that you're moving around in Canterlot.
Wait, which guards?
All of them? Spike was pretty vague, but there was some commotion building up and...
Nope, it's your time to move. Grabeth and make sure you don't fracture your leg again, idiot, crutch, along with the aid of some OPness from books, gets you back on your feet, and hobbling through the streets of Canterlot, while politely ignoring the intricate nature of how vague Spike was being. Sadly, your exploits in Ponyville amongst the guard apparently didn't really get much farther than that, so you only got even more funny looks as you hobbled through the streets. But gladly, only you got funny looks as you hobbled through the streets of Canterlot. The destination of the day was apparently a castle suite, to grant you a safe haven while Ponyville dealt with, well, that whole issue in that corner of the world. Apparently, a lot of rooms up in the palace were already being converted into temporary housing from the non-Pegasus denizens of Ponyville, until the problem could be dealt with the Pegasi being transported to Cloudsdale for, well, obvious reasons. Mobile cities sounded both like a logical nightmare, but also the greatest things on planet Earth. Wait, no, fuck, what was it again? You forgot the name.
So, Anon, I heard that you got a few visitors?
Twilight tried to start, almost doubling back at the realization that this was probably not the best conversation starter. In the slightest. After all, the letters she got over the past years kept getting oddly worrying. Her mentor was constantly asking odd questions about him, and Princess Luna was asking more about his mental health. And every time, she couldn't exactly give a solid answer. Were they worried that he'd go nuts or something? I mean, while he may have gotten a bit more eccentric over the past dozen months, he seemed fine, especially during their usual chats, though he didn't seem to focus a bit more on home, asked fewer questions. Maybe she should have added that to her reports. And then, out of nowhere, Celestia comes into the room and... oh, okay, she has that distant look. Alright, it looks like a long one, I guess. Well, I'll have to start talking again in about...
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just thinking about something and...
Now, apparently. Anonymous gives out a low chuckle, lagging behind a moment to scratch out his neck, an odd habit that he kept. Knew it. You didn't ask me where to start. I should have guessed. She didn't much appreciate knowing him that much. Alright, story of my life for what, the 15th time or what?
I already know a bit about the visits, so... Can you tell me why they visited you?
That sounded a lot meeker than she expected. Thankfully, he just laughed it off. Weird, he usually got a bit more... irritable. I mean, there's several reasons, probably. I mean, I don't know. Celestia started asking me about what happened in Ponyville. Luna was getting focused on my dreams, or whatever. And then there was that guard, and Mr. Edge. Actually, this probably is gonna be a little while. Care to narrow it down?
Well, a weird question, but did something happen a year ago?
Awkward seg, but it'd work. Until Anon paused, of course, giving her an odd look. Yeah, a bit weird. Serviceable, but weird. I mean, sure, you have your reasons, you always do. Maestro of insight, you are. He recovers quickly with a smirk, continuing his pace from earlier. Twilight would be lying if she said she didn't smile a little at that. Well, about a year ago, I visited the palace to complain about something or other. I think it was about you... No, never mind, that's probably not it. Moving on. So I walk into the place and bam, wall of guards. They suddenly rush me like I'm a bomber or something and throw me into the throne room. Now, you see, Celestia is in there, looking like she'd been stood up for a date by a 10 out of 10 would marry again, or something equally horrible. So, me and my infinite intelligence with absolutely no outside influence, stupidity, or weakness to crying decides to cheer her up. And that is the day I discovered the power of... He stops abruptly to poke Twilight's nose. For some reason, she feels a pressure build up inside of her lungs. It takes the willpower of focusing onto the story alone to convince her that whatever this wasn't worth it. That thing that you just resisted, where pretty much everyone else failed. Weird, it must be a genetics thing. Anyway, so it works like a charm on Mrs. Helios, but more horse-like, and she starts laughing like an idiot. I'm being an indomitable man, deciding to clear her face or whatever stained, only for it to be hugged to death for about... hours? I don't have a number, sue me. That was not exactly normal. So she finally lets me go, and I get out of the throne room, and voila, wall of guards. I don't know why I forgot about him, but I can deal with more charges. So they start to... That was not normal at all. First of all, why would her mentor look like that? As far as she knew, Princess Celestia only got ready like that for the bigger celebrations or appearances around Equestria, and around this time of year, there wasn't really much going on. Secondly, did Anon like tempting Tartarus? And thirdly, how did that thing he did even work? The last two would need more questioning, more experiments. But a question she didn't know the answer to was even more pressing. What was the impact of his actions? Sure, he got hugged for a bit, but what happened afterwards? Not with the guards, though. She heard about the abbreviated version of that before, and not to mention that Anon was back in Ponyville less than a day or two after that happened. She already knew that Celestia started sending a few letters back to Ponyville, the kind that would generally ask how she'd been, but there were always a few questions about Anon in there. She did the best that she could, and sent back whatever answers she had, and she always had done. Then, after about a month, Anon stopped coming to Ponyville so often, and that's when she started getting the very direct letters from Princess Luna regarding his mental health. So, she started to schedule more meetings with him, and while he was acting a bit odd, he generally seemed fine, if anything, homesick. So that could be reason enough. Well, for Luna, that is. And even if the Everfree ran a bit, well, rampant, that happened plenty enough times already. I mean, surely Luna's guard would be her issue, too. Anonymous had one good encounter with Celestia. So what came of that? Too many questions, too few answers. Hey, Earth to Twilight? Suddenly, the appearance of clapping hands in front of her muzzle brought her out of her thoughts. Are you okay there?
Yeah, I'm fine. I just had to think about something.
What kind of something? Oh, the universe we shall never know kind. Good, got it. Still, any kind of prophetic teachings for the day? The universe shall never know. He gave out a hearty laugh, continuing onto the path towards the castle. Maybe she could ask Celestia about it when they arrived, but before she talked to him about Ponyville, that is. We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. You were enjoying freedom way too much. Hospitals suck. Everything else is fine, because considering hug piles are not allowed in hospitals, but everywhere else-ish, they are. Wait, you're getting poked to the side again.
Can I ask you about Ponyville itself now?
Ah, crap. More reminiscing. This time about assaults and wild animals. Allegedly. You slow your one-leg hop pace and gesture for her to keep going.
Well, what happened?
General questions, the worst kind of them all. Also, ones you're allowed to be vague with, so it'll do. Well, that's a bit of an odd story. Okay, so you've seen one of those bat pony things?
Oh, these trolls? Yeah, I have.
Technical terms, your worst enemy. Now you might have to use that if some pony, Twilight, gets pissy, Twilight. Alright, good. So that'll make things easier. Alright, so on the Ponyville front, I decided to take a trip into town because I was bored out of my mind that day. Or, well, more than usual. You smirk a bit. So, I get into town, and it's what you'd expect from a ghost town. Everyone is gone and everything sucks, and not to mention, the loneliness was getting to me a bit. You'd refrain on details about that part, for now. So, I start moving towards any central spot, seeing if this was all like 100% real, and when I get close enough, I suddenly see one of those bat pony...
Bistros.
Right, those. So, I see one of those, actually a familiar one. The guard sent to get me, if you're up to date. A quick glance back and she nods. So she lets out this ear-piercing screech that I only can describe as an entire army's battle cry condensed into one, but cuter. So I pass out for a bit, start to float in and out of reality for a bit, but start to wake up to Miss Eardrum Killer and somebody who sucks at rhyming. Don't mention Billy Joel. Anyway, I act like an idiot, surprisingly. I know. And one of them clonks me over the head. Probably the bat, the rhyming one seemed pretty chill. But next thing I know, I'm in the hospital and I was attacked by timberwolves while clocked out, apparently. A brief summary at the end, but it would do. Twilight seems satisfied with your explanation at least, and starts to hover by your side for a bit.
And the hospital?
Honestly, I'm already an exaggerating storyteller, and I think most of the hospital was a bad trip. Ask the princesses, I'm not a reliable source. That earns you a funny look, and a bit of a smirk from Books. Like, seriously, I think I went through all of my teenage stages at once in there. Shit was weird. Angst phase, reference phase, self-absorbed phase, and all the rest. I think they need to reconsider what they pump patients full with. She stifles a giggle from that one. I mean, I even got to the fanfic part, when I got visited by the rulers of the land and the hospital because, why the fuck not? It's my story, bitch! That one seemed to hit close to home as she drops to her hooves to keep from laughing it up. Mission accomplished. The journey shall continue in style, and you start to hum your earlier choice of music, and get back to speed hopping. Twilight joins in your pace, sated for now. But oh, God knows the more questions are to come soon. She wouldn't be Books without being able to write anyone's biography. Or maybe that was just with you? Humility is a virtue, apparently. Too bad pride is more fun. Celestia didn't know what she expected from the visit to Anonymous's room, but his general reaction plus her own freak out, certainly, wasn't it? Why did she lose herself like that? And why did she have to intimidate him like that? And why did he have to hide? It was simply a friendly greeting, meeting some human familiar. If a bit unfamiliar, too.
I had high expectations, didn't I?
The realization wasn't lost on her, and she let out a long sigh. What was she supposed to do next? Their previous meeting had been natural. It didn't feel odd or forced, it just felt nice, at least to her. It was like she didn't have to be princess for a small moment, unlike earlier. At least he would be arriving at the castle soon, so there was a chance to speak with him, just with expectations in check. A depressive chuckle left her as she circled the throne room for perhaps the 20th time, waiting for yet another subject to take her away from her thoughts. One that would not come as her sister entered the room not too soon afterwards. A quick glance at the darkening sky revealed quite promptly that it was time to change shifts for the night, but her sister did seem to be approaching her. So could it be a report from Ponyville, perhaps?
Greetings, sister. Hello, Lena. Are you ready to switch? We have moved beyond this point by now, surely.
Luna was rather adept at lifting her mood and certainly earned a chuckle this time.
Well, I suppose so. So, any news from Ponyville? Nay, it is quiet on the fronts, as it is everywhere else, though it is our duty to assist any creature that seems preoccupied. And you, dear sister?
The chuckle was perhaps a little less genuine this time.
I'll be fine, sister. It's nothing to concern yourself over. Well, we would be inclined to agree if you had not made 10 circuits of the room before noticing our presence. What?
That had caught Celestia off guard, far more than she cared to admit, gaze snapping over to her sisters.
We always made you out to be the type of pony to sit sternly on the throne, not make the Shiner's job more difficult than it already is, though we are always welcome to be proven wrong.
Luna simply countered, allowing herself a moment of amusement at her sister's expense, something she didn't quite appreciate. After taking a second, too long to recover, Celestia simply shook her head.
It's nothing. A personal matter, at best. Does it have something to do with a certain subject?
Yet again, Celestia debated the impact of sending some pony to the moon.
Perhaps, but I am far from interested in speaking of it right now. Suit yourself.
Luna dismisses with a flick of her ears, moving towards the throne. As usual, the room begins to contort to the visage of the night as her sister's magic started to bring the moon over the horizon. Not wanting to linger for too long, Celestia began to move towards the entrance.
Though, keep in mind, I know of your dreams. Not being self-aware does not suit you, sister.
She did not want to linger at all, actually.
I do understand. He is a complicated being. I was rather shocked myself to hear that he knew nothing of my visits in the dream realm, though perhaps spend a bit more time than a few hours in a year with him before you start to fantasize.
The doors closed very promptly,